Oh. We are live, and we'll just pop this over us. Now, I promised you on Wednesday, when there was that gap, that he wasn't there, that he would be back on Friday. Here he is.
I know, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Yes. I mean, what's the difference of 48 hours?
None whatsoever once you're here.
A lot can happen in 48 hours.
It can indeed. It can indeed.
A lot of things don't happen in 48 hours, which I suppose is the nature of television, the news, and why we're here.
Just life generally, I suppose. Yes.
That is probably the answer why we are here. The ultimate answer to life, I often have said, is 42. People say, what do I believe is the essence of life? And I always say 42. And it seems to satisfy people. I can't explain why. They don't ask, which is just as well.
Yes.
But it's relevant, which is more than I can say for our subject matter this morning. Not entirely relevant. You mentioned Max Miller, of course.
Oh, I always, whenever I think of you, I think of Max Miller.
We try to do that. And I was reliably informed this morning via some electronic device or other that currently there's an awful lot of Max Miller available on, I think the person said, YouTube. Yes, YouTube.
Yes.
Or in Max's case, Blue Tube. Yes, good. So I haven't actually attempted to find this, and it wouldn't surprise me because the guy obviously recorded a lot. He appeared in a lot of movies. Very, very rarely interviewed, actually. You very, very rarely see an interview with Max Miller, which would be very interesting. Think what a marvelous challenge that would be.
Oh, absolutely.
To have Mark's, the man, or if, for example, he'd been around, I don't think he did Desert Island Discs, I could be wrong. We need to double check on that. But that would have been a marvelous subject. The very first Desert Island Discs was during the war, of course. Roy Plumley devised it. What a brilliant idea to come up with an idea like that.
Absolutely.
To ask people what it's so obvious today, but then it was innovation.
Yes.
And it gave you an opportunity, of course. The only trouble with it was twofold. One, it was scripted. So it was not in the way that we're rabbiting on here. I mean, we don't clearly have a script. In fact, the day Keith asks me, could I have a script of what you're going to say? It would be out of the window, because I don't work that way.
I know, do I?
No, and the best television, the best radio is impromptu in this way. So that was unusual. So in other words, they both sat there and they read these various scripts. The very first man was a guy called Vic Oliver.
Oh, didn't he have an orchestra?
Well, no. Well, he was actually he married one of Churchill's daughters. Actually, that's another story. But actually, no, he was with a show called High Gang with B.B. Daniels and Ben Lyons.
Oh,
and later on television, they became, I think, the Lyons family, something like that.
Indeed.
Absolutely. So Vic Oliver started, and yes, he was a musician. A man of many parts, and probably the emphasis on parts, I would have said.
What was the first presenter of Desert Island Disc, a lady?
No, it was this man Plumley. Not only wise man, not only did he come up with the idea to the BBC, and they said, well, who's going to present it? And he said, I am. They bought the idea in the middle of the war, of course, maybe short of. I mean, Wilfred Pickles was a presenter, an announcer on the BBC in those very early days. And of course, the names like Alvar Liddell, wonderful. Stuart Hibbard was another name. news readers of substance, as opposed to the pretty appalling news.
Oh yes, I remember. And wasn't there a chap called Valentine or something?
Yes, yeah. Well, that was Valentine Dial, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, yes. He was the man in black.
Yes.
Another war type. Fancy producing in the middle of the war, basically a terrifying half hour on radio about sinister things happening and the man in the middle of the war.
Yes.
I mean, what you want is humour. Of course, you got plenty of that. That's why Max was always on the radio. And there was a program that used to be called Workers' Playtime.
Yes.
And that used to go to munitions factories all over.
Music while you work.
Music while you and it used to be a whole series of little orchestras that would then be probably live at many. They didn't record stuff in those days, so they'd all have to turn up in the middle of the war in some obscure studio somewhere in Bristol or somewhere just to play half an hour. Amazing.
I have mentioned this to you before, but one of my favourites is Jack Jackson.
Oh yes, of course.
On a Sunday morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you recall, he kept playing because he was so intrigued. Rose, Rose, I love you.
Yes. We tried to remember her name, and we failed.
I will look it up.
It was a big hit. It was a very big hit.
At the time. This charming little Chinese lady.
Absolutely superb. Yeah. It was phenomenal at the time, at a time when...
I'm bringing tears to my own eyes. Wonderful times.
It was lovely.
Yeah.
Well, Max, of course, didn't appear on Desert Island Discs, but obviously he's out there on this YouTube or whatever it is, so it might be worth having a look at some point. Though it brings me on to a meeting I went to last night, which is probably why I'm feeling a bit weary this morning, because it was a meeting in Brighton. It was a meeting of the Max Miller Appreciation Society. We've mentioned them before, of course. They're a group of people who obviously try to keep his memory alive, and why not? And we have
several distinguished people apart from yourself.
There are indeed. For example, Mr. Michael Aspel, for example, is one of our members, and a wonderful BBC producer called John Fisher, and our former president of the wonderful Roy Hudd. And by the way, everybody, on behalf of his widow, Debbie, I do know that they're trying to raise money for Roy Hudd's statue. This is going to be close by where she lives. And I saw a little message from her within the last 24 hours that they're getting closer to the figure they're trying to raise, which is a lot of money, It's about £100,000 for a statue. I mean, that is a lot of money. They're on the way, but that I know they're going to struggle because however well-meaning people are today, that's a lot of money. So we wish them well. And we'll keep everybody informed on that. Debbie is a splendid person and met Roy when they were performing.
Do you know where people should send a contribution?
I think if you look up Debbie Hudd, I would think HUDD. It's all there. She has her own little website.
Okay. Now, when you come in next Wednesday, bring in the details and you can make an appeal to
that
people.
Would be very nice. And she would certainly appreciate that because there is a strong tie between Debbie, her husband, of course, and the Max Miller Society, because he was our president, and he was a hands-on president. We saw an awful lot of him. We're very lucky that the new president is equally hands-on and a man with knowledge, contacts, and a great inspiration. And his name is John Fisher. We'll look him up sometime. However, this little talk I went to last night, someone actually printed out all the details because I had to introduce this lady. I hesitate to say this. I'm really ashamed to say this. I've given quite a few talks in my time, Lewis and elsewhere. And there are numerous occasions, and I'm sure this has happened to you, when the person designated to introduce you gets your name wrong.
Oh, yes.
I've been John Hembarty, I've been John Henson, John Hennessy, and very rarely John Henty, funnily enough. Although it's a simple enough HEN for nut TY.
Yeah.
However,
occasionally I've been the chappie.
Precisely. Now, this lady had a remarkable name, which I had, and then I forgot when I was making the introduction. Her name, and I'm sure that some people out there will have heard of her. She's a journalist. Wrote extensively for a range of national, international, and regional newspapers, including The Guardian and also the Los Angeles Times. Her name is Midge. Now, there's an interesting M-I-D-G-E, Gillies, Gillies, Midge Gillies. Highly intelligent, charming woman, and her subject was not Max Miller. I wasn't sure what she was going to talk about. She's written a book very recently about, and it mentions it here, her latest book, Piccadilly, the Circus at the Heart of London.
Oh.
Now, I thought this was really interesting because this was the story of Eros, the story of the Pavilion, that's the famous cinema, no longer a cinema, and the Guinness sign that used to be there.
Right, yes.
A remarkable story. And also the Café de Paris, which was the place until it was hit by a bomb during the war. Fascinating talk, I have to say. And one or two of our members, it won't surprise you to know, were able to chip in with memories of the theatre at that time. And of course, to a certain extent, Piccadilly. I mean, there was much reference to, of course, the rather sleazy side. But one of our members pointed out that actually wasn't that sleazy in the 30s and 40s. In fact, it was quite an orderly place, and all the ladies of the night were fairly well behaved.
Yes.
It was all fairly straightforward. It was, in a way, far better than today with all the subterfuge and all the lack of innocence. The argument was that Piccadilly. Have you any memories of Piccadilly?
Well,
West End?
yes, I do. But the one that sprang to mind immediately was it was the theme of In Town Tonight.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, the ladies selling roses.
That's right.
Violets, lovely violets.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And the traffic going around.
Yeah.
The
Once again, we stop the roar of.
That's absolutely ding. Yes.
In Town Tonight. That too used to be scripted, I gather, and then they threw it all out eventually. I mean, they tried to script Max Miller, and the famous story is, of course, that he submitted his scripts. But when they read quite innocently. But the moment he went on and said, "Here, oi, hey," the way he told it, and suddenly they were extremely rude to the point where someone said, untrue, that actually the man was banned by the BBC. And we've discussed that before. He was not banned by the BBC. They couldn't afford his fee. It was about £1,000 a week earning the big circuits, the cinemas. So that's the little story. It was an excellent talk. And my only memory of Piccadilly, I worked in Lower Regent Street, just below the hub there. And I can remember in the 60s, early 60s, seeing the Rolling Stones running around all over the place. I remember I used to have my hair cut in a hairdressers within the Soho area. And of course, I had my very first Chinese meal in a restaurant there in Soho. Now, of course, Chinatown is massive, absolutely, and a wonderful place to go to, actually, really attractive. But it's changed enormously. And the ladies of the night and the windmill, for example. What about the windmill? Did you ever?
I never went into the windmill, but even now, when I'm in that area, I go by and I look. Because it's still there.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not a theatre anymore, but
I know.
it's still got the "We Never Close."
Yes, we never close, which was a wonderful symbol. And they also said, and this also came up in the conversation, that Boots the chemist was there in Piccadilly Circus, and they too never closed, to the point where one of our members said there used to be long queues at midnight for drug people getting drugs from Boots the chemist, which was 24 hours a day in the heart of London. So that was a fascinating talk, and the sort of talk that we like to get, you know.
I have one other memory of Piccadilly. Is the theatre there, is it the Criterion?
Yes.
Yes, is that they did a play called Maxwell.
Oh, really?
Do you remember they wrote a play at Maxwell?
I do remember.
And I remember it particularly because I was at Reuters and I went down to interview them because the cast went on strike.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I tell you something else about the Criterion. People often think that this little chat is planned. It isn't.
No,
you mentioned the Criterion, and I mentioned to this lady. And she mentioned that Petula Clark, the lovely, who's still going strong today, God bless her, the beautiful Petula Clark started her broadcasting career in the lower part of the Criterion Theatre when the BBC, during the Blitz, did a program for servicemen abroad, serving abroad, and she was enlisted to sing a song. I think I've mentioned it before because she sang it for me much later, many years later. I reminded her because I said it was my favorite song. And it was a little song called Mighty Like a Rose. Sweetest little fellow, everybody knows. La da 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 da, la da 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 da. It brought tears to my eyes because it reminded me of my own gramophone at home. And I didn't hear that broadcast, needless to say, with Petula Clark. But there she was sitting in a dressing room of a theatre somewhere, and she went and sang the song personally to me.
Oh, wonderful. Now, I love, I'm an addict of any movie that's made of Goodbye, Mr. Chips.
Oh, yeah.
And she did the musical with Peter O'Toole, which was famous because Peter O'Toole ignored every piece of advice and sang in it.
He did.
Yes.
Mostly spoken, I suppose.
Well, it was really quite. He sang it, but it was sort of a chant. Yes,
a bit like Rex Harrison, I think, when he appeared in My Fair Lady.
Yeah.
I actually saw that version of My Fair Lady at the Drury Lane Theatre with Julie Andrews and also the wonderful. Get me to the church on time. Oh dear, come on, everybody out there. Who was it? The singer of that. We'll come to that a bit later on. I can't remember what his lovely name was, but he was famous as well. And what a show that was. It was the Ascot scene, for example, was stunning. The only time I saw a better musical, again in the West End, so I did quite a lot of West End visiting, I saw West Side Story. Wonderful. And I saw the main American cast for that as well. So haven't I been lucky?
You have been lucky.
You know, I wanted to mention one other thing on a serious note, if you can live with it for a moment, because you may recall and viewers may remember that I actually was born in the Croydon area.
Yes,
in Croydon, in Thornton Heath. I know it well, and I go back there from time to time. And I've simply got to say here, as it's an opportunity just to say, and so many people have spoken about this, but the appalling murder in Croydon within the last 36 years.
Yes.
That was absolutely dreadful. And it really, really, really struck home to me for a range of reasons. The young girl, who's now been named, of course, was stabbed in the neck by a young man of 17 years of age, who's now been actually accused and charged with the murder. He had this ghastly knife. We won't go down that road, but an appalling knife. And it was in the middle of Croydon at Wellesley Road, which I know very well. And a terrible incident with children on the buses, of course. And it's just unthinkable that happened. And apparently even the young man actually was captured, arrested in New Addington. And I was a reporter in New Addington when I worked on the Croydon Advertiser. And it was a deprived area at that time because he was isolated from Croydon. And it was, they called it Little Siberia. It has changed because they now have a tram route there as well, so easily accessed from Croydon. But I had to ring up a friend who was the editor of the Croydon Advertiser, might be watching, long shot. But I rang Roger up and we discussed it because of sadness, really, that young people are going through this sort of thing. And on Question Time last night, that's why I'm tired. I came home from Brighton and I switched on, and there was that Fiona Bruce lady, and she had a panel, and their main topic was knife crime and what can be done about it.
Yes.
And we won't go there today, but it's a terrible, terrible problem.
Yes. No, I mean, just before we do leave that, though, if you recall, no more than about a year ago, Cressida Dick, head of the Met, was under great fire because there was something like 5 stabbings a night in London. It was knife capital, and I thought that they'd sort of started to get on top of that, and then suddenly, wham! This rams home.
Well, this is a dangerous area. We both know that, but Cressida Dick, of course, has moved on. I saw her very recently. She came out. She said she was gay, which I didn't know that, I have to say. And then she was appearing together with the Archbishop of Canterbury, another man who has depression. I mean, that puzzles me. I always have to say that the Archbishop of Canterbury should suffer from depression. No surprises, but you do wonder what a world we live in today.
Yes, absolutely. I met Marcus Welby a couple of times.
Really?
Yeah. He was a bit of a remote man. I thought a very strange choice of the Archbishop.
Well, there we are. It needs a forceful person, I would have thought, today.
So too.
And there are plenty of them around. Let's face it. You would have made a marvellous Archbishop of Canterbury, if I may say so.
No, fancy carrying a crook.
Oh, I can see it. You'd love it. Think of all the circle, the ceremony. You'd have to dispense with the hat. There's an even better hat. For that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh. Yes, I would probably be known for cycling around with no mitre on.
Oh. Well, there's a thought for you, everyone. So finally, because I think I know Melissa is waiting for us probably.
No, we're all right yet. In a minute or two. But we've only been on for 20 minutes, and it's always a nice dose of Henty.
Well, I thought we might end on a lighter note, as we've been quite serious about these things, and of necessity. So you normally ask me what I've got in my bag. Well, today I'm not even going to start. I've been having a bit of a turnout, as one must, with a lot of old pictures and transparencies and stuff. And some of the stuff is the stuff that would go very well in one of these little charity shops. So I've got quite a lot of stuff to take to a lovely lady who occasionally watches here. Well, I'm taking this along, so it's all in this bag. But I've got one item that I'm not actually offering, and I thought I might just show it to everybody. I don't know whether you can see that. Yes, you can probably see that, because this tells another story. And this is the Bugs Bunny. Now, we've mentioned Bugs before. I'm a great Bugs Bunny fan, going back a long time when I actually was in Hollywood, name dropping John, and I actually met the man who creates the voice of Bugs Bunny, whose name was Mel Blanc. And so I loved him. He was a super bloke. He did all the voices for me. And I acquired this object, and I thought, just for a little bit of fun, in the dying seconds of this remarkable interview and chat, I might just read you the first page of this little book.
Oh, please do.
Well, it is. It's an electron, and then if there are children...
Am I writing WhatsApp, Doc?
Well, we can do that in a moment.
Right.
This is electronic as well, you see. I mean, I know you and your electronic gear here, which appalls me, I have to say. Nevertheless, this is electronic. It plays music, it creates sounds, and it talks as well. And it is the Big Bunny, Bugs Bunny, and it's called The Big Race. Now, it's lovely. It's still working, although the batteries are running down, but then his battery is running down, and so is my battery running down, quite honestly. Got to be replaced, I think. Not replace us, the batteries, you understand. So, I mean, as an example, what did you say? He used to say, what's up?
What's up, Doc?
No, where's the volume? I mean, can people can hear this? Have a listen. No. Well, do you know, I think Bugs has finally bitten the dust.
Oh, yeah.
No. Well, wait a minute. Remember this then. Come on. Oh, dear. Shot. You see, this is technology, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
You see, I should have checked it. Well, I can hear that, but I don't suppose anybody. What about this? It's not very good, is it, Keith?
Not very loud.
I could do that. You see, that used to be. This was. It said, "What's up, Doc?" Yeah. What's up, Doc? And then there is a carrot, and there is a klaxon, and there's horses.
Unknown.
That won't work either. So there it is. It's a lovely object. I don't think I better offer it to the charity shop.
Oh, no.
Because
I think you should get another battery and bring it back next week.
Exactly. I think someone's trying to talk to us as well.
I ignore those. I should really turn it off. But then, you know me, I quite like sound.
Yes.
Sound.
That's why I brought it.
Yes.
And I'm a little bothered. The trouble is, I mean, the big question is, can I replace the batteries? And it does suggest If I look at this, it
It
says
looks
here,
yes.
it says replaceable batteries.
Yes.
So I'm going to have a go at that. I'll tell you what, next week, and I hope it'll be Wednesday. You know, dodgy times at the
Yes,
moment, but
well,
I hope it'll be
we can be flexible, but
Ah,
people are used to you on Wednesday. That's the
Well,
point. Yes,
I understand that. Yes, any other day, dreadful. But Wednesday is, I mean, just about tolerating for 30 minutes or so. And so I will go away, and I'm going down also into the town. So what I'm going to do, I'll find a screwdriver. I think our friends will have a screwdriver. And I'll have a look what batteries are needed. And then maybe, because there's going to be those round silver.
Yes, I think they are. Yes.
Oh, well, you have to get the right ones. I'll try and get them. And then everybody, I know you'll all be here next Wednesday, and we'll hear the full story, which starts, it's a lovely little story. One sunny Saturday, Bugs Bunny was in his carrot patch. Bugs thought to himself, there's nothing better on a sunny day than pulling up a carrot. Now, you'd agree with that, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
What better way to spend a sunny day than pulling up a carrot? I mean, I think Max Miller would probably make something of that. However, so there we are. And then he does a little nibbling. So that should be interesting. So we'll look forward to that. I shall put it back over here. I should go and get the battery. And that probably sums it all up. Really.
Yes.
We talked about Midge, this lovely lady Midge. We talked about Max Miller. We talked about the sadness of Croydon at the moment. And we've talked about Bugs Bunny. I mean, for goodness sake, what more
can we ask? Well, there's just one thing that now that you've talked about carrots,
yes.
It reminds me of in the 50s, I think it was, or the 60s, there was a review called Beyond the Fringe.
Yeah.
Yes. And there was a skit in it in which they said, I was in the garden at the time growing carrots for our night fighters.
Yeah. And what did they do? They made a cup of tea.
That's right.
It was water.
My wife said to me, war has broken out. Never mind, my dear, I said, let's go inside and have a nice cup of tea.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And there's another marvellous sketch. And I think again, I mentioned this, I've got that whole show Beyond the Fringe and the programme in Brighton. And there's another little skit where a man is going off to do a bomb over Germany. And he says to his man in charge, the AOC, well, au revoir. And the man very slowly says, no, goodbye. You know, which is quite sinister, actually, but gets the message across. Final thought, I've just suddenly thought about this too. I may have mentioned that before I went to this meeting with this lovely Midge lady, I actually went into an Italian restaurant, as one does. And I had a very nice, I love minestrone soup. Lots of carrots in it too, which is relevant.
Vegetable stuff, yeah.
And so I had that, and I had some ciabatta, which turned out to be bread and butter, really, but it's not ciabatta. And then I had a pudding I shouldn't have done, and it was one of these coupes in a quite a fairly tall glass, although they got smaller recently because of economies. And do you know what this was called? It was called... I can't remember. Oh, yes, it was. It was called a maxi. It was called a maxi. That's amazing. MAXI. I thought that is quite remarkable. I've got to have one of those. So I told everybody at the meeting, you know, on another occasion, why don't you go to this lovely Italian restaurant? Mention my name, because you never know, maybe worth a bit. And just ask yourself for a bomba baxi. A bomba. Wonderful idea.
Wonderful.
That's an idea for everybody. You know?
Absolutely.
Eat in your Italian restaurant and have a maxi.
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to go now. I'll get a taxi.
A taxi.
I want a taxi.
Yes, yes. As I recall from Beyond the Fringe, also the coal miner who wanted to be a judge.
Wants to be a what?
A judge. Do you remember that skit?
No,
the coal miner
no,
who
I don't
wanted to be a
remember
judge. Yes.
No.
Here I am, a TV presenter who would love to be a judge. Yeah. And it's right across the road.
I know. Well, you're absolutely wasted. Well, there you go. Right. Here's another man. He'd like to have been the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he'd like to be a judge. Funnily enough, I mean, if you ask me what I would have liked to have been rather than what I am, I would need to ponder hard. Actually, I would like to be a talented player of multiple instruments that I could then take everywhere and entertain people to big crowds and very popular, because I know someone who does that and I envy him. I shouldn't do, but I envy him.
You should not have got rid of your pianola.
That was the trouble. That's another story on another occasion. But I was going to, because I was known then, not only as the man who ruined Torremolinos, but also the very well-known pianola player, whose legs, I mean, my legs are unbelievable, largely because of playing the pianola. Because the whole damn time you're pedaling for hours and hours and hours. And I had the 1812 overture as a roll, which was about that thick.
Yeah.
And it took probably about 20 minutes to pedal the 1812 overture, complete with a cat pistol for the sound.
Aren't you envious of the sort of life that John and I have lived?
Oh, it's me. I can see people sitting there now and saying, well, he may want to be other things, but I should think he should be perfectly happy with who he is as he is. Yeah, my wife says that, you know. Oh. So that's it. I've got to go. I'm going to get the batteries.
Very well. We see you on Wednesday.
Yes, that's a good
I think
idea.
what we might do is we'll upset Kevin Kramer this morning. We'll play our version of the Potter's Wheel.
Ah.
Right. We're back. I'm just doing the technology bit to see if I can get hold of Melissa Conti, and hopefully she'll be joining us and from New York. Let us know what's going on over there. And you just have to do one or two little technical things. There we go. It's marvelous, these things. I must say, I rail against technology, but it allows us to do all sorts of interesting things. And here we are back again. And so John Henty and I going down memory lane, and some of the things that happened so many years ago, even we don't remember. So let's just recap what we've done this morning. We started off with a little news review, and as John says, very tragic, about the young girl, I think 15-year-old girl, who apparently decided to be a hero and stepped in to protect her friend, and was stabbed to death by a 17-year-old boy. And that was the main news item, although there were many other little bits and pieces around this morning. And then we had the two Bs, the two barristers, Philip and Richard. First of all, we talked about the law and some of the things that, particularly the issue of India and Canada falling out about a stabbing in Vancouver. Followed by then John Henty, plenty of Henty, and as usual, he was his usual entertaining self. And guess what? It is now the beauty is going to join the beast. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Keith.
How are you?
I'm well. I'm coming to you on my computer, which has apparently has a very terrible camera. Wow, it's all faded and green.
Well,
Anyway.
you're coming out here looking gorgeous and beautiful.
Oh well, thank you so
Yeah.
much. Yeah, I usually
John
have my
Henty-
phone, but
John
yes.
Henty just left and offered his felicitations to you, and enjoyed as usual, knowing that you were coming on after him. So there we are. Yeah. I'm sorry we had such technical problems last week. I'm not very good at technology to begin with, but I was a naughty boy, and I actually dropped the computer, and it right in the middle of it decided to fight back right in the middle of a morning program. Anyway, I fixed it now. I got some chewing gum and put it in the back, and it's worked.
Oh well, there you go. You are very good with technology.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So tell us what's going on with you.
What's going on with me? Well, it's raining terribly today. They're looking at flash floods, and even the trains have warned that it might, there may be some delays and cancellations. So I don't know what's in store today, but we'll see. I will venture out into the city because it's an adventure. So
yes. I mean, is it the storm season in New York? Or?
I think when you have a change of season, from summer to autumn, so that oftentimes happens. So, and we also have we're still in hurricane season, so a lot of them come up from the south, and
Right.
we get the rain, not necessarily the hurricanes, but we get the rain and the flooding. So we'll see how it goes.
Yes. I actually, Melissa, quoted you yesterday on the program because the issue came up about people desiring, having the desire to do something, and that you can achieve everything if you really want to. And I said that you had been very eloquent about that 10 days or so ago, and that it was a wonderful philosophy.
Well, yeah, well, we limit ourselves. We are our own worst enemies. We always say that, but it's true when you really think about it. Like, what do you think all day? If you were to have a transcription of every thought you thought all day and you read that, you would be shocked. And you would say, well, no wonder my life is like this. Think about it. Yeah, I don't even want to think about it. Oh my God. So yeah, something to ponder this morning.
Indeed. Now, bring us up to date with our favorite young man.
Oh, Connor. He's doing his military workouts. He recently had it was a land navigation course that he was taking last week while I was going to a party. That was nice. Well, I'll talk about the party later. I think if you get it, well, actually, I probably shouldn't talk about the party in case somebody hears about it. So he did land navigation, but it was funny because it was in this very posh area of New Jersey in this dog park. And I'm like, why'd the Marines pick this? And it rained the whole time. So I think they just kind of commiserated, that which is good because you need that connection and that camaraderie. And then I just went to Starbucks and played around with this little girl who was there. She was so cute, this little baby. She was laughing and smiling, and I was just drinking my coffee, a pumpkin spice latte. That's what we have here, with whipped cream. It was divine. It was so good. We love everything pumpkin here. So, yeah, and next week is, I think, October, so you're going to start to see a lot of Halloween. I mean, we go, especially in this town, Tarrytown, Sleepy Hollow. The legend of Sleepy Hollow, right?
Yes.
And by Washington Irving. One of the towns down the road is named after Washington Irving, who has his little house down there. And
Ah,
so, yeah, and so the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which is north, um, they go all out with Halloween. They have Halloween parades. They have the decorations galore, far more than Christmas. So it's just almost like a different kind of a Christmas, scary Christmas.
well,
So yeah.
actually, we celebrate Halloween far more now in this country than we used to.
Mm.
But of course, it tends to clash a bit with bonfire. And in
Oh,
Lewis, nothing can ever replace bonfire.
right. That's coming up. What date is that?
5th of November.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll be coming to see you. Um, I'll be in town November 28th till December 13th. So at some point we'll see each other.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I'm hoping I don't know whether you've seen so far a new correspondent, but a very old friend of mine, Harry Atherton, who lives in Normandy. Harry and I were in Vancouver together many years ago, and we actually formed a rugby club together. So we sort of stayed in touch, and he's now doing a spot. He renovated 4 separate French castles, mansions.
Wow. Wow.
One to a point where he turned it into a hotel, and apparently Michael Jackson came to take a look to see whether he might buy it. So, an interesting character.
Wow.
But Harry is going to check with the little town of Dieppe. You will love Dieppe. It is a neat little harbour town, and it's wonderful for its big chateau. But they also, on the 28th of November, have a festival for scallops. It's a 2 day festival that they have for scallops, and it's the biggest anywhere in France, apparently. So we
Cool.
thought, what a lovely idea, because it's only a 4-hour ferry ride away. What a
Mm,
lovely idea to go over and cover a scallop festival. We
how
can eat
nice.
scallops until they're coming out of our ears.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
So
Sounds
we
great.
might just actually have to catch you and say, come on, the moment you land in Britain, you're going to get on the ferry and go over to the
That would be a lot of fun. I would love that.
Right, you're on.
Okay, there you go. Poof.
um, is Halloween, of course, is very big in the States, isn't it?
It is very big in the States. The macabre. I mean, I don't know that I'm, you know, I like autumn. Um, I like black cats. Oh, my little baby. I'll show you my little baby. You can see him on the windowsill.
Oh,
That
there
little,
he is.
yeah.
Yes.
Hello. And and pumpkins, of course. But I don't necessarily like all the scary, spooky stuff. But it's a nice opportunity for people to be creative, which is nice. And the
Yes.
people have fun and they're happy. What's wrong with that? Nothing's wrong with that. So
Yes.
I
I
just like.
must say,
Oh,
I
go
must say,
ahead.
the scariest time that I've ever seen on film to do with Halloween is in To Kill a Mockingbird, which is a wonderful movie. But I was on the edge of my seat the whole of the time that the young girl is walking home, and she's still got her pumpkin head on.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good movie. That was a very good movie. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, but
What
Connor's
happens in New York for Halloween?
nothing too much New York City. Connor has threatened to come to work dressed as Darth Vader. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully I think the Japanese might like it. I don't know, but because he works for a Japanese firm, so we'll see how that goes over. But
Yes.
me, I don't know. What do I might put on some cat ears or something. Some little something. Nothing huge, really. I'm one of
Now,
those. I'm
how
one
was
of
his
those minimalists.
NHK duties this week?
I'm sorry. What was that?
How were his NHK duties this week? What did he do?
Uh, it's funny. We often have lunch together, and he talks about the news. And while I'm eating, I'm not. I mean, I'm paying attention, but my retention is not great. So, what was the news this week? I don't know. I don't know what the news. I honestly, I don't really watch the news anymore. I don't watch it. I will read the Associated Press wire, but
Yeah.
that's it, to keep up, at least to get some idea. But a lot of it is politics, and as you know, politics is just all they do is just pose problems and no solutions, and they create problems that don't exist. And it's
You're
just
absolutely right.
problem, 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 and that's it.
Yeah, what are we going to do about it? Yeah.
That was their job, is to do something about it,
Mhm.
and they don't. So they just want to create hysteria and get attention. It really isn't just attention grabbing. It's like, I guess they didn't get enough attention as children. So I have to roll my eyes because you got to grow up. But yeah, especially our form of government, particularly our House of Representatives, a bunch of children. Seriously, I don't know why any of the voters would ever vote for some of these characters. Ugh, like, really? Well, that
Yeah.
speaks volumes about the voters.
Yes.
So yeah. Anyway,
Is there any tension building about the election next year?
oh, every day. Every day, because we have the prospect of two men who, I hate this. I don't want to say old people are washed up, but these two particular people, they're just a mess. They truly are. And then
Yeah.
they create mess. If you're a mess, you're going to create a lot of mess for a lot of people. And
Yes.
it just, like, I don't know. It's not that either candidate doesn't have something good about them, but they're just not, they don't have their senses, their sensibility. They don't look at, they're just, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
yesterday, every time Joe Biden speaks, I'm like, oh my God, he's going to say God save the Queen again. Like, what? Like, what? And I just, because he's so unpredictable, you don't know what he's going to say. And then Trump, of course, is very angry. And I think all of the prosecutions are it's overboard. It's ridiculous. Some of them are foolish, and then they make all of them look foolish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that makes him look like he's under attack when he did do some shady things. She certainly did, but then it makes him look like an angel
Yes. Yes.
when
Yeah.
he's over attacked.
Yes. Sometimes
So,
it's better to keep quiet until it's all over, isn't it?
yes, and the thing is, you give him publicity. You give him free publicity. He never has to spend any money
No.
on political ads because he's always in the news. So it's like, why? Like yesterday, Biden gave a whole speech on Trump. Why are you giving him attention?
Yeah, exactly.
Why?
Yeah.
He loves it. He eats it up. He loves the attention. It's like, why are you doing that? Talk about what you're doing for us. Don't
Yes.
talk about Trump. God, give me a break.
But I don't think that it's solely just in America that you've got a much lower level of politics. I think it's throughout the world right now. I'm sure that you're aware of what was happening in Canada yesterday. I mean, that just showed total lack of political nous. It's very, very silly. I'm talking about the praising of what turns out to be a Nazi assassin during the war.
Yeah, you just got to shake your head and say this can't be real. This has to be an illusion.
Now let us turn to part of the import of you appearing, and that is you're taking your masters, but by the same token, in very practical sense, is you pay great attention to the theme I just say impaired people, and you have some thoughts, and they're very wise thoughts, if I may say so. And I wonder where you're at now.
Just so happens that this week, on the 26th, it's the 50th anniversary of the enactment of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 here. It was really a groundbreaking civil rights law. And what it does is it requires equal opportunity for people with disabilities. We don't call them impaired here, we call them disabled. There's always some new fashionable way of referring to somebody that isn't normal, because none of us are, by the way. Just to let you know. What the act does, it prohibits disability discrimination in programs conducted by the federal government, federal agencies. And it also polices a lot of the local police departments, education, school boards and things of that nature. And so, they like, so in particular, some of the things that they do is they make, like, for example, public sidewalks, pedestrian signals are now accessible. They weren't, many decades ago. The streets, they didn't have the curves the way they are. They didn't have the ramps. And so people with disabilities, they didn't have access, physical disabilities. Maybe they couldn't walk. They needed to be in wheelchairs. They couldn't have access to places, which is wrong. They should have access to places. Then also, they protect how people with disabilities, when they interact with law enforcement. So this oftentimes comes up, especially with young people, say, for example, with autism. There was a case in Louisiana where the sheriff's department, they were called to the scene of a 16-year-old with autism who was having a sensory breakdown. Oftentimes people with autism, their senses are very heightened, and if they get very agitated, they can become sort of, I don't know, dangerous, but they can be unwieldy. And so the Louisiana Sheriff's Department was called in, and they shackled the child, they handcuffed the child, and they put him on the floor, and they basically pinned the child's face to the ground, and the child ultimately died. And so in those kinds of cases, the federal government comes in and intervenes because it is, in fact, a violation of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. We've had a lot of cases, particularly in Florida for some reason, where the school personnel, they're so quick to call the police. And oftentimes what happens is the children are, you have like 6-year-olds handcuffed and put in a squad car. Are you serious? Are you that incompetent as an educator that you cannot handle a 6-year-old?
Mm-hmm.
That you have to call the police because you're idiots?
Yes.
And I can't tell you how many times that's happened. And I know I've been in the education system in Florida in particular. And while my particular school was geared toward children with autism, there are a lot of schools who they don't know what to do. Well, train yourselves. You're educators. You are supposed to, by law, educate every single child at their level, not at the educator's level, at the child's level, to bring the child to the best of his potential. That's your job. Do your jobs. Okay? Thank you. And that's basically it for the week. But that's...
Okay, well, before we just leave that, have you any thoughts about how to change the thinking? I mean, let's say Florida, but I'm sure that it exists in other parts of the country and other parts of the world, to change the thinking of, gosh, we got a problem, let's be heavy-handed.
Well, I mean, policing, understanding that there's a consequence to being heavy-handed. And also making people understand that they themselves could have a loved one, could they themselves be disabled, and it can impact them personally. And then you're going to want someone to intervene on your behalf or on your child's behalf. Trust me, you will. So this is a child. You're in trouble now because you did the wrong thing. And they need to be held accountable. Absolutely. Absolutely. And they need to be educated. You need to be able to handle an autistic child. You need training. Why is it so hard? You
Yeah,
train
yeah,
for other situations. Why can't you train for this?
yeah, yeah,
So anyway,
yes.
I'm
One
sorry,
of the
just a little bit of
strange
logic.
things, this is true of the corporate sector, but it may well be true of the educational sector too, is when budgets get tough, the first thing, for some strange reason, that gets cut is training.
Right. Yeah. Training. I know in schools, music and art. And a lot of kids come to school from music. They used to come to school from my music program when I was
Yeah,
teaching in the very low level schools. I remember a lot of students told me the reason I come to school, Miss Winton, is for you, for your music program. I don't come to learn math. I'm coming to learn music. I'm like, okay, we need to keep this child engaged. And that's oftentimes the way to do it. But then if you cut those programs, you've cut the child. I mean, that's like the heart,
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
times the heart of a school. The math program is not the heart of the school. Certainly the way math is taught, it's not. They don't engage students. I mean, educators, gosh, they're so darn lazy. And a lot of times, I'll tell you what it is, they don't know how to manage a classroom. They don't.
Yeah.
They probably don't even know how to manage their own children at home. And they come in and try to manage a classroom. That's the first thing you have to learn as an educator, how to manage the kids and be organized and set expectations early. What was the saying they would teach us? You do not smile until Christmas. And that may be a bit of an exaggeration, but
But
they have to learn the rules of your classroom. That's it. I
yeah.
was very strict with that because we had instruments. So they had to really follow the rules. And let me tell you, the kids were they were fantastic. They loved it. They loved structure.
Indeed, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I couldn't agree
So
more. I
anyway,
mean, strange enough, just a strange little story, but when we first went to Northern Ireland, my daughter went into boarding school at her request, because she said, I've come into a strange society, but the people I get along with are the other people who are in a strange society, the other boarders. So she went into boarding school, and she used to say, can I bring so-and-so home on the weekend? And she would bring home 2 or 3 of her friends. And she said, I have to tell you, Keith, she called me Keith for reasons I'll explain at some stage. And she said, I have to tell you, Keith, is they love coming here because you actually shut me down. You tell me that I can't go out. What was the word that we used? Anyway, you punish me by saying that's it. You can't go out. Said because their parents don't bother.
yeah. I think parents are just in their own little worlds, or they're on. Well, nowadays they're on their phones,
Yeah,
and so then
you've got to show the children you care.
you give the
Yeah,
children phones, you expose the children to the internet, and then you want to blame everybody else. It's your fault. It's your child. You brought the child into the world. Okay,
absolutely.
and
You've
educated
got to
it.
care about them. Care in a very real way. I mean, actually, I have to say, you and Connor. I think that when you actually really get into this educational process, is you should write a handbook based on you and Connor. That would really help.
Actually, I'm planning to write a memoir, but not to simply just as a memoir, but as a tool.
Yeah.
A lot of times, what not to do. But yeah, it's also like a tool. What maybe not what to do, what not to do, and really to enjoy your child. You really should. Because when
Absolutely.
you do, the child enjoys life, the child enjoys you. And once again, it's about what's in your mind. What's in your mind? What's
Absolutely.
going on? Because really, honestly, folks, what's going on in your mind all day, check yourselves, and I have to check myself too, is what you are going to see in your world. And since you can control that, because we're supposed to be able to control our minds, you can control what goes on and how you experience your life. Yes, you can. Now you can sit and you can complain all day, and you're going to see more and more things to complain about. Or you can do the opposite and look at all the good that you have, and you will see more good. On that note, yes.
All right. We look forward to seeing you next week at the same time. But we are now going to plan to get you involved and get you to Dieppe for 2 days to gorge on seafood.
Sounds good.
Bye, Melissa.
Bye, Keith.
Well, there we are. What a very heavy day we've had, a very good day, a very enjoyable day, and some very interesting stuff this morning. So I will say to you, toodle pip until Monday morning. It's been an up and down week. We've had some disasters, some triumphs, but I'm glad that we've ended the week on a high note. And I look forward to seeing you on Monday, as you know, excuse the expression, full of piss and vinegar, and we can forge ahead and do some more exciting things, have some more exciting people, talk about some more exciting topics on Mirador Television. Remember the name, and remember, we are like Marmite. Love us, hate us, but you'll never forget us. Toodle pip. See, toodle pip indeed. Yeah, we're here somewhere. There we go.